So I have my bio up on the screen in part because I want to really emphasize that I'm coming to this work with a background in creative writing. I was a poetry major as an undergraduate. And so when I circled back years later to take my master's courses, storytelling and creative language development were extremely important to me, and they became part of the focus of some of the research that I did, which ultimately resulted in my exploration of some digital tools for digital storytelling. So you'll see some of those things wrapped in here. As we go along, I anticipate that you will likely have had some experience with some of these tools, but hopefully you'll experience something new and perhaps think about using something that you've used in the past in a different way. So welcome to Reading Comprehension and Response, digital resources to add to your toolbox. I'd love to get to know you a little bit better, and I really want to center our thinking around student voice and student storytelling. So to get acquainted, if you could please share in just about 60 seconds, so a short recollection, can you remember a story a student of yours told? What was the topic, and how did hearing this story impact you? Again, a quick 60 seconds. If you could get that into the chat. A true story, sure. Doesn't have to be a true story, just a story that you recollect. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so there's a real variety here. People talking about journeys of refugee experience, journeys of immigrant experience, negative life circumstances, experiences during war, experiences of being displaced, memories of family members. Yeah, what it's like to navigate our administrative gateways here into the United States, just personal experiences. I'm noticing that a lot of the themes here are negative, which is interesting to me, or at least I perceive them to be sort of negative, difficult experiences that people have had. Yeah. And then in terms of some of the things that I'm seeing folks say, these are humbling experiences for us, things that we never forget, and certainly things that turn us on to just learning about who our students are. What you've shared in the chat is extraordinary. I hope that at the end of this session, you'll download the chat so that you can read each of these stories that your peers have shared. We're going to circle back around to student voice and student storytelling. I want to start out, though, with entering into the world of text. So I'm going to ask you to change your focus in the chat and ask yourself, what makes text engaging? What keeps us as readers who are practiced readers engaged in a text? When do you keep reading it? When do you put it down? Jessica jumps right in with dialogue. Ooh, I love it. What makes a text engaging? The plot. What about the plot? Be a little bit more specific. Tell me more. Emojis. I love it. Oh man, we're like really in the digital age. I feel my age is like the creases on my face are getting deeper as I read these. Oh, great. What questions the story wrestles with? Absolutely. Whether we can connect that emotional feeling, does it connect to our own experience? Yeah, life connections keep coming up. So you guys are touching on a lot of these things. Sensory experience, super important, right? To get us engaged in a text. Definitely these emotional feelings. Do we have a reaction, but also do we see the characters having emotional experiences? Importantly, and many of you touched on this, we need text to connect to our lived experiences, our interests, and perhaps to add something to our lives. Maybe we don't have experience traveling out into space, but there's something about that character's experience that adds to our perspective. But in order for us to be able to engage at all of these lovely sort of sensory levels, we need to be able to engage intellectually. And so when we're thinking about selecting texts for our students, we need to be really diligent and considerate of whether our students can access the texts from a vocabulary and grammatical perspective, and also whether they have already established schema, particularly when we're talking about students from intercultural backgrounds and mixed cultural backgrounds. Do our students have the past knowledge to be able to interact with and understand the situational context of the text? So how can we as language and literacy instructors generate and increase reader engagement? We need to begin by selecting appropriate texts, but we also need to model and promote engaged reading. And I'm going to be referring to this before, during, and after reading strategy model that connects with some slides that my colleague Eric Appleton has presented in the past, and I borrowed these from him. I really love these slides for giving us a little bit of a reminder of what it is that we're actually doing when we are reading as practiced readers. So I'll leave this up and quiet my mouth for a second so you can take this in. And then what can teachers do to support engaged reading? And we're going to move through this quite quickly because I just want to give us a little bit of a taste of where we're going. These are our objectives. These are the things that we want to make sure that our students are actively engaged in. And the tools that I'm going to present are going to give us opportunities to engage our students in these ways. So let's jump in. The goal for today is to look at how we can integrate digital technologies into the before, during, and after model of reading engagement to increase our students' engagement in texts. And we'll be using the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tools that you can see over there on the left-hand side of my screen: Mentimeter, Actively Learn, Padlet, ScreenPal, and Google Slides. And I'll take you through things one step at a time. So we'll have a mini lesson. The mini lesson has a context and some limitations. So let me share those with you briefly. I developed this lesson when I was living and working in Tel Aviv as part of my master's degree program. So you'll notice that this is all centered around the city of Tel Aviv. That's really important because it connects back to the student's schema, and it's a place for them to then be able to project their own voices over the top of the voice of the author. The limitations here: the proposed digital tools, they do require a degree of digital literacy for both student and teacher. So if you start to see some of this stuff and it looks overwhelming or like it might be too much, consider that part of the process of incorporating these tools into your work requires play and practice before you present. And that certainly, especially based on your assessment of your students, you may need to plan to teach so the digital literacy components of these tools before you jump into just using them to engage in reading comprehension, as I'm going to propose in this mini lesson. So I'll present each digital tool briefly, and then we'll jump into a scene. Where it's appropriate, you will be students, and there won't be any surprises. It'll play itself out. Eric, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I wanted to say, so I think that's a really important point, and I think that's another opportunity to model as teachers or tutors, to model ourselves as lifelong learners to our students, right? So that if we are dealing with technology or another resource, that we don't come to it sort of, ex nihilo, we get it all right away, right? That we had a learning process ourselves, and sometimes things come to us more slowly or more quickly, right? So we can talk to our students about that like, if it takes them a while to have some uptake on this, for us, it happens too.
Suzanne, all of the tools require I'm sorry, let me put that the other way. None of the tools that I'm going to present require a paid subscription. They are all free. That being said, well, with the exception of Google Slides, and I think the screencasting tools, well, there may be some paid. Typically how these things work is it's free up until point X, at which point, if you want it to do more for you, you have to pay or somebody has to pay. So in all of these cases, you can log in, you can create a login using if you have a Google account already, a Gmail account, you can use that same account to log in. I'll go through that a little bit more as we go along, but in terms of subscriptions, everything is free. For the purposes that I've presented them to you, you can access all of what I'll be showing you today for free. Okay, all right. So let's jump on it. Before, we want to get our students engaged. We want to get them thinking about the topic. We want to whet their interest, and we want to know what they already know. So I want to introduce this tool called Mentimeter. If you could just drop a note in the chat, yes, if you have ever heard of or used Mentimeter, just real quick, let me see if there's anybody out there. Cool. Okay. Mostly no's and a handful of yeses. Good. All right. Well, Mentimeter is an interactive slideshow tool. It allows you to collect data from your students or whomever you're presenting to in real time and display it. So one of the things that's great is that it can visually represent your participants' ideas. For example, the word cloud that you see over here that has interactive and big pink letters. The way a word cloud works, the more people say a word, the bigger the word gets, and you're going to have the opportunity to experience that in just a moment. This is also a great tool for formative assessment. It can be a formative assessment before, where you get to kind of put the thermometer in and see what your students are thinking in advance, but it can also be formative assessment during, where you're collecting information from your students to get a sense of where they might be stuck or where they are preoccupied and focusing. With that being said, we're going to jump into our first scene. Now, if you have your Zoom screen set to take up your entire screen, you're going to need to hit escape or do whatever it is that you do to make it so that you can see the tabs, because you're going to need to navigate to other tabs while we are doing this process. So do what you need to do now so that you can see me and Zoom in one tab. And then we're going to open up some other tabs in your browser as we go along here. If you'd prefer not to participate as a student, that's okay if that's feeling like a little overwhelming. But for those of you who can, I would really love the participation. We have 3 objectives in our use of Mentimeter. We're going to set the stage for this reading about the city of Tel Aviv, using related multimedia content to engage students' senses and generate interest. We're going to use a collaborative digital space to brainstorm key vocabulary connected to sight, sound, and feeling. And then we're going to use a collaborative digital space to generate novel ideas related to this topic. And here we are in the scene. All right. Today, we're going to be reading a short text about an author who lives right here along with you in the city of Tel Aviv. But before we do, I want to get our minds gushing and thinking about this city that we live in. So we're going to watch a short video. And as we watch, I want you to notice, what do you see? What do you hear? And what do you feel? Just pay attention. We have about a 2.5-minute video, and I hope that you enjoy it. If you have your videos on and you could give me a thumbs up if you can hear it, that would be great help to me.
Yeah, we can hear it.
Great. Enjoy. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed that. What did you see, hear, and feel? To participate in this activity, you'll need to open up a tab in your browser and navigate to menti.com, menti.com. Let's see if I can put that in the chat for you. Menti.com. When you get to Menti, you will enter, that is not the thing that I want. You will enter the numbers 8, 9, 5, 3, 8, 5, 3, 8, 9, 5, 3, 8, 5, 3. When you get there, you should see 8 boxes. In each box, please enter one word and then hit submit. You do not have to fill all 8 boxes. Take about 40 seconds to see a lot of people are excited about the cars. Take about 40 seconds to get your ideas filled in there. And then once you have submitted your answers, you can navigate back over to your Zoom screen and you'll be able to see what your peers noticed. So if you're with me over here on the Zoom screen, you should be able to see how as folks are adding their ideas, this tool is shifting and shifting over and over again, okay? So right now I might be asking students to notice what are the largest words, what did most of us agree on, but also try to pick 3 or 4 words that you did not write down and see if you can go back in your mind and recall the moment in the video when those things popped up. All right, great. We're going to move on to the next slide here because I want to know what was missing. You should now, back on your Menti screen, be able to click a blue button that says go to slide. And here you can answer based on your own city, not Tel Aviv, but based on your own city, what was missing? What do you think someone who talks about your city or explores your city should make sure to include in a video or story about your city? Please write a short response. And in about 30 seconds, go ahead and submit that response and we'll be able to get a sense of what we think we should have included in this video or in a story about our city. Now, as the instructor, I can see on my screen, and if you're with me on the Zoom screen, I can see the answers are coming in, right? I've got 8, 9, 10 answers that are already here, but I haven't revealed them yet. So I have control as the instructor only when I tell the screen to show the answers will the answers pop up. And that gives me some decision-making time in terms of how much time I want the students to be working independently and when I want them to be able to borrow from each other's ideas. Okay. All right, so there is our before activity. I'm gonna bring us back over here and move us on, not that way, but this way, to our during activity. So the next tool I want to introduce is Actively Learn. This is the tool that we're going to use to actually explore the text. Could I get, once again, a yes in the chat box if you've used or are familiar with Actively Learn? Ooh, good, lots of no's. Okay, great, good. That's sufficient. So here's Actively Learn. One of the things I absolutely love about Actively Learn is that it is a tool that makes explicit what the before reading and after process looks like. It is preloaded with lots and lots of content that is selectable by reading level. It is not specifically geared to adult readers. That is a limitation. So you do need to be discerning about which preloaded texts you're using and whether they are appropriate to your audience. It is also possible with the free version to upload your own material, which is what I've done for the purposes of today's lesson. So I highly recommend Actively Learn for you or for your tutors or volunteers, especially if they're just getting their heads around what it looks like to develop really strong reading comprehension lessons, because as I said, this tool walks you through a great ways to present texts. One of the things that I love about this tool, in addition to the fact that it's really lays out the reading comprehension model, is that it creates a lot of layers of accessibility. There are translate tools, there are dictionary tools, there are read aloud tools, all ingrained inside the program. So in this scene, I wasn't able to give you student access because in order to create student access to the text, you need to have some data from students in advance. You need to have their email addresses, you need to develop the class and then load the material into the class. So that wasn't going to work. So instead, what I'm going to do is share the objectives and then model on my screen for you to be able to take a look. So here, our objectives are to use a secondary predictive activity that relates back to our preliminary prediction activity. We're going to use gateway questions to reinforce and build strong active reading habits and to check for understanding. You'll understand what I mean by gateway questions as I model the tool. And then we want to provide engagement through interactive vocabulary supports. So we're modifying the text, we're making it accessible, but we're still maintaining rigor by keeping those challenging words in the text. What you see here on my screen on Zoom right now is Actively Learn. Yes, all of the sites that I'm sharing with you today are free, but again, there's a free version and then there's an add-on version. So you can access this for free with your just by setting up an account or using a Google account if that's more convenient for you. So the first thing I want you to notice here is I'm in the student preview mode. I'm able to add directions for the assignment right here at the top. And when I said gateway question, this is what I mean. I open the activity with a prediction question. Predict, what do you think is the author's #1 favorite thing about Tel Aviv? And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and I can't get anywhere. Only once I answer this question does the gateway open. So let me give you that example. I'm going to submit my answer and a couple of things happen. One, I can see the class results. Now that's something that you can turn on and turn off. There are lots of tools inside of Actively Learn that allow students to see each other's responses, react to each other's responses or not, depending on your teaching context and objectives. So you can turn those things on and off. But as I was saying, it was a gateway. So now that I've answered that question, I can begin to access more of the text. You'll notice that there's some highlighting here. The highlighting tells me that there's some special information for me over here in the sidebar. Not only do I have the opportunity to unpack idiomatic expressions and vocabulary for my students, I also have the opportunity to do a check for understanding or some kind of feedback from my students that I can gather either whether I'm doing this synchronously, in other words, all my students are interacting with the tool at the same time, or this is homework and I'm collecting the responses and looking at them independently. As I move through here, again, you'll find another gateway question. This gateway question is an opportunity for me to check for students' understanding. And again, if the student gets something wrong, they get immediate feedback or they get logged out in the middle of the activity. That can happen too. I hope you have the idea. I don't want to spend too much time logging my figure out. Let's see if I can get back in here real quick. I'm I'm going to leave that. I hope you have the idea. I don't want to waste time there. But there is actively learn. The takeaways here are that students are able to give you feedback on what they're integrating as they go along. You're able to stop them as they're reading, which is part of the engaged reading process, right? Where am I getting stuck? What do I need to go back and review? Where do I need to reflect? Let's move on to the after process. There are 3 tools that I'm proposing for the after process. They're all tools that I'm proposing you use for student storytelling. When we get to the end of the workshop, just so you have a sense of where we're going, there will be time built in for you to just explore these sites. So if you're feeling like, wow, there's a lot of information, good. I want it to be a lot so that you can go back and sort of gently and slowly immerse yourself in it at your own pace. You'll have some time to do that as we close up. So the first tool I want to present as a reflection tool for the after process is Padlet. If you could jump into the chat again and let me know whether you've used Padlet or familiar with it. Okay, this is a more common one, it looks like. Yes, a little bit. Yes, yes. No, no. Okay. If you've used Padlet before, I'll be interested to know if you've used it in the way that I'm proposing. Padlet is a really lovely virtual corkboard where you can literally put any kind of media and you can share a Padlet infinitely with as many other users as you would like to. So in for today's purposes, we're going to use Padlet to reconnect to key ideas and terms from the before and during activities to make that learning sticky. So I have integrated into this activity some of the key vocabulary and concepts that were actively explored during the before and during presentation here to be recycled again during the after portion. We're going to provide a container for student voice and multimedia expression. And this is an opportunity to practice any variety of writing skills, depending on what your objectives for the lesson or for the class are. This can be an assessment tool. This can be a brainstorming tool. All kinds of things are possible here. Let me take you there. I'm going to drop this link to my Padlet into the chat and invite you to please join me on the Padlet. Again, just being mindful that you can navigate back to the Zoom screen. If you would prefer to stay in the Zoom screen, you'll be able to see the Padlet, but you won't be able to interact with it. So it's up to you what you'd like to do. Once you've gotten into the Padlet, if you've chosen to get there, if you could just put click the heart at the bottom of the yellow note where it says directions, that will give me a sense of how many of you are actively participating. At the bottom left-hand corner of the yellow directions note, there's a heart. If you could click there, that will give me a sense of how many of us are actually there in the Padlet interacting. Is anybody there? All right, I'm going to move forward. I'm not sure if that function is working right now. All right, so here's what I've done. I've included a sticky note with directions, and I've included a model. Oh, you didn't see the heart there. Okay, that's okay. Can you repeat what to do? Oh, yes, 17 people. Thanks, Karen. I don't know. I'm afraid to refresh the screen. I want everything to keep working. Never mind. If you can see it, great. If not, it's okay. What I've done here is provide parameters, and the challenging thing is really just to get your students oriented to how to use the tool. And so I want to show you how to do it now. If you're in the Padlet, if you can click in the lower right-hand corner, there should be a plus sign with a circle around it. Mine is yellow. And if you click that, I'm going to model it now. When you click on that yellow plus sign circle thingy, you can begin to create your note, and you can model it right here. Your cursor is in the subject line already. And what have I asked for in the subject line? To put the name of the place and your name. So I want my friends to know that they should go to the mall in my town, and my name is Tamara the Star. And down here in the text box is where I'm going to write my description, blah, blah, blah. And I can use these tools that are here in the honeycomb section to add media. So you want to explore this in advance. This orange guy that's the second to the right will let you select an image. These 3 dots are the holy grail that will let you connect all kinds of things here. So your students really can have some freedom to play and add different kinds of media to their storytelling. If you'd like to add something to the board, you can, but for the sake of time, I think I'm gonna let us just move forward here. I want to give you one other option for what we can do to engage students in storytelling as they're responding to text.
So Tamara, before you move on from
Yes.
Padlet, the other thing that I think is really helpful about Padlet is that in addition to this kind of cork board or sticky wall, there's other Padlets that you can set up that create chronological order, patterns, and then also other sequences. And there's also maps that you can set up on Padlet. So for example, if you're thinking about a character going from one place to another, right? Or if a story takes place in multiple real places, you could have information on that map. So the kind of entry-level Padlet is this kind of like sticky note on a wall, but there's other structures that are also free within Padlet that give you other ways for students to organize their thinking and responding.
Thanks, Eric. That's a great add-on. I haven't used the map tool and I would really love to explore that. So maybe you and I can talk offline about how you've done that. Great. All right. The other tool that I want to share with you can seem a little overwhelming, but it's not. So it just takes a little bit of practice. The idea here is to really jump into digital storytelling in the way that I was first exposed to it, which is that students create a text and image and are able to create a voiceover that is recorded on top of that text and image. This can be a really simple process with 2 tools. So the first tool is Google Slides. And if you use Google Classroom, making a Google slide, I'll show you mine, making a Google slide model for your students and then creating a template that they can then fill in is very, very easy. Once you learn to do it, it's a snap to do it again. When you do this, you're able to create a copy for every student. So students are just jumping into their personalized copy of this tool and creating their work directly into the template without having to copy, without having to do anything on their side. Alternately, if you're a tutor and you have, I don't know, 4 students or 5 students, you could simply make a copy of this slideshow over and over for the 5 students and email that link out to them, and they have access to that template just as easily. So you'll see I took exactly the work that I created for myself. I created a model here in the template. And then I opened a second tool, and I'll give you all of these web addresses in a moment so that you can explore. This tool is called ScreenPal. It looks like all students must have a Gmail account for this, correct? Susan, I don't know the answer to that. I think once you have a Google Classroom, I'm not sure if the students need to have Gmail accounts. I'm seeing a head shaking no. You don't need, so you can just load students in using whatever their email account is, and they'll have access to the Google Classroom. Catherine, is that right? Yeah, okay. So good news. And if you don't have Google Classroom, I don't know the answer to that. Yes, they need email accounts. I don't know if they need Gmail accounts though. Okay, this is a question we may have to come back around to. I want to throw out what's going on with this ScreenPal tool, and then we can circle back around. It seems like there's some wisdom in the room about the Gmail question. So ScreenPal is a really simple tool to use. Again, you can create a free account, and it's as simple as clicking this recording button. Once you click the recording button, and I'm not sure you can see this on the screen share. So you'll have to play around with this independently. But once you click on the recording tool, the recorder pops open on your screen. And it's literally, I wish I could show you. I should have taken a screen capture of it. I apologize, but you can play with it on your own in a few minutes. A box pops up, and anything that's inside of the box that's on your screen gets recorded. So if I have my slide up on the screen, I don't know if I can navigate Zoom and show you this at the same time. Let's see if I can. If I have my slide up on the screen and I want to make a recording of this slide, here's the slide that I want to make a recording of. When I click on that record button, a box is going to pop up on my screen. And just like any box inside of, like if you're making a table or a text box, you can drag and drop to make it larger or smaller. Anything that fits inside of the box is going to be recorded visually in your recording. And at the same time, I'm also recording audio, so I can audio record my voice. So it looks like this.
My students. I see the faces of my students.
Blah, blah, blah. You see what's happening here? It's really a simple thing. It's just one image, and then the voice can be recorded on top of it. You can also have students video record their faces in this same tool. It's up to you. But one of the things that I love as a teaching strategy here is that this tool can build confidence for students who may not yet be prepared to present on the spot in your classroom in front of their peers, or they're perfectionists and they just really, really want to get it right. An audio recording tool allows students to record and re-record. That recording allows them to hear and auto correct their own mistakes, and it creates an artifact that students can then share not only with their peers, but with other authentic audiences like their family members and friends in other digital spaces. Eric, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I think these are great tools. And one of the benefits of having students record things is that they can record them in multiple sort of takes, right? So if you're reading something and you're thinking about comprehension, you could have a prompt that says like, well, do you think this character is like, sympathetic, right? And then read it as if you think the character is sympathetic, right? Or read it as you think the character is a little bit scary, right? And so you can prompt them to think about their interpretation and then use their voices and their tones to express the meaning that they're making with the text, right? And so that they can model it in that way.
I love that. Yeah, you're adding my thinking for these tools here at the end is to circle back to where we started, which is how do we engage student voice? So they've done the reading comprehension, they've thought about the text, and now what do they have to add to the text? What stories do they have to tell that are related or relevant to the text? But I love that additional suggestion. With that being said,
My student.
oops, not that. With that being said, I want to give you this opportunity to just explore. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes. It's 12, 17 or 18. Give yourself a little bit of time to just explore one of the tools, two of the tools, whatever was interesting to you. All of the links are up on the screen. You can discover how best to create your account, whether you'd like to log in using your Gmail account if you have one, or you can log in with another email account. And then we'll come back together in about 5 minutes to just talk about where we are with this, where I welcome critical feedback. I shared some limitations at the beginning of the presentation. If you're seeing other limitations, please feel free to bring those forward. We're here among colleagues so that we can have those critical discussions. Conversely, if there's something that you see here that you're really excited to use and you thought about how you could use it, what context you're excited to use it in, I'd love to do some idea sharing before we close the session. So I'm going to drop these into the chat so that you also have them there. Let's see if I can get out of here. I'm actually going to stop my screen share for a second so I can give you these links. All right, there they are. Hopefully that means that you should just be able to look in your chat and click on any link that you're excited about. And in the spirit of being a person who likes to have a little background noise, I'm going to give us a 5-minute timer with some relaxing music. And we'll come back together in a few minutes. All right, we have about a minute left to explore, so begin wrapping up. And as you're wrapping up, please think about, what are you most excited about? What are you looking forward to trying? How might you incorporate some of these tools into your work? And please feel free to start dropping some of those ideas into the chat. If there's anyone who's interested in sharing out, you could also raise that digital hand. And in about 30 seconds, we'll bring it back together. Yay, okay. All right, I'm gonna stop the screen share so I can see everybody. Sometimes those timers end with something really jarring. So I hadn't gotten to the end of that timer before, and I was very relieved that it was just a ding. Is there anyone who would be interested in sharing what you're excited about? There are just a few of us who have dropped some ideas into the chat. Take another 30 seconds or 60 seconds now to just drop what is most exciting to you about what you've seen here today. What's something that you think that you could explore further, or how might you implement some of these tools in your own practice? And then if you are interested in sharing out, we have a few minutes. Please feel free to raise a digital hand if you're excited to participate. I came in a little ahead of time. I was nervous about that 1 hour slot. So I was like, chugga, chugga, chugga. But that's good. Everybody likes to have a few extra minutes to, to get up and move around, right? Yeah, Kathy, thank you for that feedback about Actively Learn. Yeah, lots of choice there. And again, I cannot over advocate for Actively Learn as a tool to help new practitioners really get grounded in what strong reading comprehension looks like from a pedagogical perspective.
Yeah, Tamar, I think one of the things that comes up a lot in with regards to reading comprehension with learners that are still developing their skills is they tend not to stop, right? They don't self-monitor for their meaning, and they tend to kind of like read through. And so with tools like that, you know, you can model, all right, so here's a good place to stop. Think about what you've read, you know, do you understand what you've read, and then move on to the next section, as opposed to reading a whole article and then at the end of the article being like, wait, what? Right? Or reading the whole chapter, right? So, you know, modeling for, there's certain places in the text where we can stop and read and think, you know, it forces readers to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just as a point to point out, you know your students best, and not all students are going to benefit from the gatekeeping in the same way, right? If you have students who with whom you're working in person, for example, you may decide that you want to be more organic and flow with them, but you still want to use the tool. Just so that you're aware, you can turn that gatekeeping on and off. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, incorporating into the social studies activities. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah.
The other nice thing about Padlet, I don't think it was mentioned, is that it can be social. And so if a student uploads a question or a thought, other students can comment on that Padlet post. So it's not just kind of a serial monologue, right? Where it's like everybody posting their own ideas. Students can actually comment on each other's ideas, which is really nice on Padlet as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And a little bit more controlled than some other places, like Google. Like a Google Doc can get really messy, like with everybody's ideas, but Padlet can kind of keep them organized.
Yeah. I'm enjoying seeing the pace at which some of the feedback is coming into the chat, because I have this sense that folks are really taking time to explore and get excited about what the possibilities are here. I'm open to questions. I may not have answers, but if there are any questions that are still hanging out, happy to entertain those, but also happy to wrap up at your leisure, whatever's whatever's good. I really enjoyed making this presentation. I hope that you enjoyed, that you did take something away from it. And that part of what you took was not just the use of these digital tools and that exploration, but particularly reflecting on where we can be intentional about valuing creative language use and creative language development for our students. I know that there are philosophies of utility that circle in adult education circles. While utility is extremely important, our students, whether they're basic literacy students or English language students, have and deserve to have rich, creative, expressive lives that we support and facilitate. So I really want to push as the passion point for me in this presentation is, yes, the digital tools. Frankly, I'm a technophobe and I hate digital tools, but isn't that exciting that I can hate them and still present them to you and use them? Yes, very exciting. But what I really want, why did I torture myself to learn these tools and to explore these tools? It's because I see their utility for pushing students to develop that creative language use, both in terms of their critical thinking, that comprehension component, but also in terms of their self-expression. So if there's one thing that you take away from today, I hope that it's thinking about ways to continue to engage and increase engagement around students' use of creative voice.
Right. And I think, and also the sort of like the basic before, during, and after structure, right? Thinking, what do you want students, what schema, as you were saying, like what schema, what ideas do you want to activate before they read something, right? And there's no right or wrong answer to that, right? Depending upon the direction that you want to go, right? You can suggest that they activate different things. And then the during strategy, making sure that they get support. And then after, what are you going to do with it, right? Like, you know, why does this matter to you? Like, why does reading this matter to you? All right, so we'll be sending out the PDF and the certificate for the program in a couple of days. If you're asking about previous sessions, you need to send an email to the NJAL address and ask for the session that you want to be added to. I've closed all, like once the session's over, can move on to the next thing. And so if you didn't register for something, send an email to NJAL and ask me to add you to that list. So thanks, Tamara. Thanks for everybody for, you know, joining in. I mean, I think, as you said earlier, Tamara, like the way that you get to learn technology is playing around with it, right? The idea that there's digital natives and digital immigrants is a very offensive term, right? One, because it suggests that immigrants are necessarily behind the times, right? It's using immigrant as a pejorative, right? So it's a really, really problematic structure. And then also, folks who are older learn to use technology when they want to and have a need to, right? And they're able to do it. And younger folks don't get it just for being young, right? They get it for playing around and having time, right? And so we're all examples of that, learning as we go along.